What's good, YouTube? Appreciate y'all tuning back in. It's actually late afternoon today. I typically record my videos first thing in the morning when I do my garden work, but I figured, since I had about an hour of sunlight left, I had enough time to go ahead and get some stuff done. And I typically don't plant seeds by moon dates, but today is a full moon, so I figured, why not just, plant it on the full moon and see what happens. So what I'm about to do is put up all these seedlings in my greenhouse. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go over to the other garden bed. I'm gonna look at my notebook first and see what I need to plant, but I'm gonna go over to the other garden bed and show what I'm gonna try to plant real quick before it gets dark, and then I might transplant a couple herbs out in the garden as well too. So I'm gonna come back after I put these all up in the greenhouse, and then I'm gonna go straight over to the next garden bed. All right, now that I put those up, I'm gonna slide over to the other garden beds, but you can see, like, once I move the seedlings away, how much space is still left in the garden. That whole little row right here in the front is gonna be all cucumbers, and then those three back there on the corner are gonna be okra. And they should give pretty good shade to the rest of the vegetables in there. So a lot of the stuff I got growing in the back side of the box are like cool season vegetables, so they can do well with a good amount of shade, but they also pair pretty good with like the squash plants and the cucumber plants. So that was my whole method behind doing that. But I'm gonna go ahead and slide over to the other garden bed and show what I'm getting into next. All right, so if you zoom in, you see I have my well organized seed drawer right here. And I'm just playing, but these are pretty much all my seeds. It's probably 30 some seed packets in here, so it's a whole lot of seeds. So what I'm gonna do is take my notebook. In one of my previous videos, I showed how I kind of gridded out what I was gonna do in the garden, and then let me go to the layout real quick, if I can find it. So I'm going back to my layout. What I'm gonna do is just kind of look at the stuff. So I just checked off everything that's been planted so far. And then the spaces that haven't been checked are the ones that haven't been planted yet. So there's still plenty of places where I gotta plant. What I'm gonna do is just kind of take a quick closer look into what can be planted currently in the garden. Like right now, based off of the frost date, because it's about 2 weeks since our last frost, even though we had a pretty cold day last week. But I'm gonna just check to see on the seed packets which ones can be planted at this time, and I'm gonna try to plant all of them tonight as much as I can. And then what I'm gonna do right here is, so I got a local garden shop I go to called Logan's Trading Company, or Logan's Garden Shop, and these are some herbs that I'm going to transplant into the garden. So I haven't been as successful as I wanted to be with my herbs. I still have a little bit of thyme that's growing, and that's what that is right there. My mint, pretty much I've done terrible on. That's lavender right there, done terrible on it. And then sage, I do have a sage plant that's still alive, so I'm gonna continue to grow that, but I wanted to still at least get some sage growing in the garden. So I got these to go ahead and transplant. So if I have enough time before you start, I'm gonna transplant these into the garden as well, and if not, I'll probably just do it tomorrow morning. So I'm gonna come back once I look at the seed packets to see what I can plant, and then I'll do like a quick little description about what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. All right, so I figured out what I'm gonna go ahead and plant. So I got basil here, and then there's a couple places where I'm gonna plant basil. So I can plant basil right here, which is actually right there in this garden bed, and then I can plant some right there, which is like the second. It's not clear, but it's that one, that little square right there. I'm planting basil in too, but I'm gonna just do it in this garden bed for the time being. And then the other thing that I think I'm gonna do is, I had beans on this garden bed previously, but I decided to put the okra right there on the edge, and I didn't put another place for beans, and this part right here is still open, as well as this part right here too. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and plant some beans right here, and then plant some more beans right here, maybe in about 3 weeks or so. But for the beans, like, so for the basil, I can plant 4 per square foot. So I'm gonna do 4 little sections where I'm gonna plant the seeds, and I'll show what that looks like when I'm done. And then for the beans, I can do 4 to 9. So I think I got 3 different varieties. I got lima beans, rattlesnake, it says rattlesnake and purple pole beans, and Roma beans, I guess. It's a bean bush. So I got 3 different types. So it says 4 to 9 I can fit. So I'm gonna do 6. So I can just have at least 2 plants per square foot of each variety. And then the only other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna transplant this sage plant into the garden as well. So there's a couple different places where I'm supposed to be growing sage at. I'm gonna grow it in that garden bed, and then 2 plants in this one. So I'm gonna just go ahead and plant that one right there behind the Brussels sprouts. So all I'm gonna do is take some of this right here. This is some of the compost that I got from my worm farm. So it looks, I mean, it's like really dark in color. It's been staying moist this whole time. Those little white flakes is like the eggshells that never broke down. So I assume that the eggshells are probably a little bit too hard for the worms to really kind of get in there. So I think I'm gonna grind them up a little bit more when I put them into the worm farm. But this is all compost basically from the worm farm. So I'm gonna mix a little bit of that into all the square foots that I'm planting or transplanting in. And then I've already showed how I plant the seeds, so I won't show that. But I might show quickly how I transplant the sage, but I think I'm gonna make a full video on how to like transplant plants into the garden bed. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the compost now, and then I'll come back again. All right, so I got the basil planted right there. Put them in all 4 corners, and then I'm gonna water it as soon as I get everything else planted. But for the sage, I wanted to just show how I'm gonna transplant it real quick. In my opinion, the easiest way to transplant is to put it wherever you're gonna place it. So I'm gonna put it right directly in the middle. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dig up a hole and then try to get the hole to just fill this up pretty seamlessly, and I'll show what it looks like when I do it. That way when I take it out of the pot, it should just fit in like snug right from the jump. I'll just kind of backfill it with a little bit of soil, and then I'll water it in so it'll settle. But this is, in my opinion, the easiest way to like transplant any type of vegetable or any type of herb into the garden. But I'm gonna dig up the hole real quick and show what it looks like once I put the pot all the way into the soil. All right, so this is what I mean when I say put the plant in with the pot so it's snug. So you can see I got the plant, it's in the soil, and I got it filled around almost to the top. And the reason I didn't fill it all the way to the top is because once I take the pot off, it'll be a little bit extra space, so it'll be able to go down in the ground. But what you'll see is I'm gonna go ahead and pull it out. So now it's a hole that pretty much fits exactly to like what the shape of the soil in the pot is gonna fit. So all I'm gonna do next is just take the plant out of the actual pot, put it in there, and then just backfill it with some soil, and then water it just so it'll settle in, so the roots can go ahead and have some water, some nutrients to go towards. All right, so that's pretty much what it looks like right there. It's pretty easy. I went ahead and backfilled it with the soil, so the soil that's in the garden is all the way up to the bottom of the plant. I'm gonna go ahead and water it in, and I'm gonna go ahead and get some mulch here pretty soon. I've really just been procrastinating, but I'll mulch it too, so it doesn't dry out or anything. But that's pretty much how you transplant every plant that I've grown so far. So that pretty much wraps up my video and what I'm gonna do for the rest of the night. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any new videos and any updates on the rest of the plants that I have. But until next time, guys, peace.